Often, a woman's strength is not measured by her ability to bear the weight, but by the courage to let go when it no longer belongs to her. In analytical psychology, we understand that encountering a toxic personality pattern acts as a dark mirror that forces us to look into our own depths and vulnerabilities. You may have believed that your resilience was an invitation to care, but for someone with manipulative behavior, that same light was seen only as a resource to be drained. The journey of recovery begins the moment you decide that your vital energy is no longer for sale or available for someone else's control. This is the initial awakening of a consciousness that has grown tired of carrying invisible burdens and has decided to walk towards its own light. The impact of a draining relationship often leaves marks that don't appear on the surface, but echo in the silence of your inner dialogue every day. Carl Jung teaches us that what we don't bring to consciousness appears in our lives as destiny, and recognizing this dynamic is the first step towards ultimate liberation. Strong women often find themselves trapped in cycles of doubt because they try to find logic and empathy where there is only a deep and strategic emotional void. By understanding that the other person's lack of empathy is a structural limitation of theirs, and not a failing of yours, the weight of guilt finally begins to dissipate. You are not just surviving the end of a cycle, you are crossing a portal that demands a new version of who you were truly born to be. Recovery requires you to remove the projections that were placed on your identity during the time you were under the control of an emotionally immature person. Often, emotional manipulation attempts to convince the woman that she is the problem, reversing roles to maintain absolute control over her perception of reality. Regaining this perception is like clearing a foggy lens after a long storm, allowing you to see the colors of life with a clarity that had been forgotten. It's not just about removing toxic behavior, but about reintegrating the parts of yourself that were fragmented by the constant need to please or protect yourself. This individuation process is the promise that your essence remains intact, awaiting only your command to flourish again. The silent strength that dwells within you is far more persistent than any pattern of control they tried to impose on you during those years of difficult coexistence. Every time you choose self-respect over external validation, a new layer of emotional protection is built around your heart and mind. It's common to feel a deep tiredness, an exhaustion that seems to come from the soul, but understand that this is the fertile ground where your new self is beginning to take root. The maturity that emerges from this pain is not a consolation prize, but an armor of wisdom that will never again allow you to accept less than you deserve. You are learning the language of boundaries, and this is the most powerful tool a woman can possess to ensure her lasting peace. In this transformative phase, each small step towards self-care should be celebrated as a monumental victory over the mental fog of the past. Clarity doesn't arrive like a lightning bolt, but like the sunrise, gradually illuminating areas of your life that were previously shrouded in confusion and insecurity. By embracing your own shadow and understanding how you got here, you take power back from those who once deeply shook you and return it to yourself. Hope is not passive waiting, but a constant action of choosing your well-being above any distorted narrative they may have tried to sell you. The path to healing is paved with the certainty that your self-worth is inalienable and that the best part of your story is only just beginning. True emotional freedom doesn't happen when the other person changes, but when the impact they had completely loses relevance within your new mental architecture. When a woman decides to rebuild herself, she begins to realize that the walls she built to protect herself can now be transformed into bridges to her own autonomy. Jungian theory suggests that we go through processes of symbolic death so that we can be reborn with a much broader and more integrated awareness of our desires and needs. Before we continue this deep dive into your healing, Take this moment to subscribe to the channel and join this community of women seeking clarity and strength. Your presence here strengthens not only your path, but that of all those who are still seeking the courage to take the first step. The toxic pattern of a control-based relationship tries, at all costs, to extinguish the flame of feminine intuition, replacing it with a paralyzing and constant insecurity. Recovering this inner voice is an act of rebellion against manipulation and a sacred commitment to your own truth, whatever the cost of the journey. You begin to notice that the words of that emotionally immature person lose their weight as you increase the volume of your own awareness and self-love. There is nothing more transformative than the moment you stop asking, "Why did he do that?" and start asking yourself, "What will I do for myself now?" This shift in perspective is the watershed that separates the time of pain from the time of the definitive reconstruction of your happiness. The experience of being emotionally pressured for so long creates a need for hypervigilance that can be difficult to switch off, even after the necessary physical distancing. However, the peace you seek is not in the absence of external conflicts, but in the constant presence of self-respect that no longer accepts being negotiated or diminished. Carl Jung believed that the process of becoming who you truly are requires a courage that few possess, but which is the only path to true mental health. By establishing clear boundaries, you are not closing doors to the world, but rather ensuring that only what is healthy and reciprocal is allowed to enter. Your emotional home is being restored, and now you are the only person with the key to decide who can or cannot cross your threshold. Often, a strong woman feels ashamed for allowing a draining relationship to last so long, but she needs to replace guilt with an understanding of her own light. It was her capacity to love and believe in human potential that kept her there. Noble qualities, even though they were used against her by someone without empathy. Honoring her history means embracing that version of herself who did the best she could with the tools she possessed at that specific moment of vulnerability. Forgiving herself is the glue that binds the pieces of her identity, creating a mosaic even more beautiful and resilient than the original image. You are a survivor of a boundary invasion, and that scar now shines as a mark of wisdom and extraordinary resilience. The turning point happens when you realize that your happiness was never someone else's responsibility, and that the power to feel complete resides entirely within you. Awakening to this reality brings a sense of lightness that no emotional manipulation will ever be able to steal again, because now you know the way back home. This rebirth is a continuous process of choosing peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, and your own company over a toxic presence. Move forward with your head held high, knowing that each day of self-respect is another brick in the construction of your empire of freedom and emotional balance. The future is now an open field of possibilities, where you are the sole protagonist and the absolute director of your own destiny. The journey to emotional healing requires making peace with silence, for it is in silence that the voice of our soul can finally be heard without the interference of the past. In a relationship marked by patterns of control, external noise is used to stifle your awareness and prevent you from perceiving the depth of the manipulation suffered. Carl Jung stated that self-knowledge is an adventure that brings light to the shadows, and by illuminating what has been experienced, you remove the poison from the toxic experience. Don't be alarmed if the silence seems uncomfortable at first, as it is simply the necessary space for your new identity to begin to organize itself internally. This is the terrain where your silent strength begins to manifest, paving the way for a life of much more conscious and healthy choices. The reconstruction of a woman who has endured severe emotional manipulation is like the ancient art of repairing pottery with gold, making the piece more valuable than before. Your cracks are not signs of weakness, but evidence that you faced immense pressure and yet remained whole in your ability to seek transformation. The emotionally immature person tried to convince you that your scars were flaws, when in fact they are a record of your incredible capacity for regeneration and new beginnings. Looking back, you no longer see only pain, but the trail of light that your courage left as you traversed the valley of mental confusion. The clarity you possess today is a treasure that no one can take away, for it was earned through honesty with yourself and maturity. It's crucial to understand that manipulative behavior patterns aren't a reflection of your worth, but a manifestation of internal turmoil and a lack of empathy for others. Many women waste years trying to fix someone who doesn't want to be healed, neglecting their own health and deepest dreams in pursuit of an illusion. Awakening happens when you accept that it's not your mission to save someone who has chosen to live in the shadows of lies and control over others. This acceptance brings immediate liberation, allowing you to redirect all that caring energy to the only person who truly can and should be saved: yourself. Your life is too precious a gift to be sacrificed on the altar of the ego of someone who doesn't know what true respect means. The final stage of healing is characterized by a healthy sense of indifference towards those who previously occupied all your thoughts in an obsessive and painful way. You will notice that provocations or attempts at control no longer reach the center of your balance, as you are now anchored in your own truth. Self-respect acts as a natural filter, allowing only vibrations of peace and sincerity to enter your field of vision and your daily routine. Jung reminds us that we are not what happened to us, but rather what we choose to become after the experiences that life has presented us. This choice is made every morning, in every small act of self-care, and in every boundary established with firmness and elegance. The rebirth you are experiencing is living proof that light always finds a way to shine, even after the cloudiest and most challenging periods of existence. Feel the pride of being a woman who did not let herself be crushed by circumstances, but who used the pressure to transform herself into a diamond of self-awareness and self-worth. The journey may have been arduous, but the view you have now from the top of your own autonomy is something that compensates for every tear shed in the process. Stay focused on your transformation, because the universe always conspires in favor of those who have the courage to be true to their own essence and to love. Your story of overcoming is a beacon for many others, and your peace is the most valuable trophy you could ever win. Integrating the lessons from a stressful relationship is what allows a strong woman to transform her suffering into an inexhaustible source of wisdom and discernment. Analytical psychology teaches us that individuation requires confronting what hurt us, not to remain trapped in the past, but to reclaim our personal power. You may have felt shaken in your convictions, but realize that the foundation of your emotional mountain remains firm and unshakable, ready to support new dreams. The control exerted by the other person was merely a desperate attempt to mask their own insecurity in the face of your light and your ability to shine on your own. Now, free from these invisible shackles, you can expand your consciousness to horizons that previously seemed forbidden or unreachable due to the fog of manipulation. True transformation begins from the inside out, when you stop seeking explanations in the behavior of those who hurt you and start validating your own emotions and perceptions. The toxic pattern feeds on the doubt it plants in a woman's mind, but this seed dies when exposed to the sun of truth and mental clarity. You no longer need permission to be happy, nor approval to make decisions that protect your peace and emotional integrity above all else. Maturity brings the understanding that boundless kindness is merely an invitation to abuse, and that true virtue lies in the balance between loving and respecting yourself. You are learning to be your best friend, your fiercest protector, and the most reliable guide on your own life journey. The healing process is usually cyclical, with days of extreme strength followed by moments of vulnerability that seem to take us back to square one. However, Carl Jung assures us that the soul's progress is not a straight line, but a spiral that leads us ever closer to our center. Each time a memory of that toxic experience arises, see it as an opportunity to reaffirm your commitment to your new cycle of life and freedom. Emotional manipulation loses its effectiveness when it encounters a mind that already knows its tricks and a heart that is no longer swayed by false promises of change. You are the guardian of your own temple, and now you know exactly which behavioral patterns are no longer allowed to enter your sacred space. Ultimate liberation occurs when you understand that the emotionally immature person never had the power to define who you are, only the power you momentarily ceded to them. Reclaiming that power is a daily exercise in affirming your self-worth and celebrating your autonomy in all spheres of your current existence. Looking to the future, you no longer see the shadow of the controlling pattern, but the brilliance of a new beginning entirely shaped by your own hands and desires. The silent strength you developed during this journey is now the engine that propels you towards achievements that once seemed impossible or excessively distant. You have discovered that your essence is indestructible, and that your capacity to love, when directed correctly, is the greatest force in the world. The closing of the cycle you experienced was not an end, but a necessary cleansing so that the new could finally find space to manifest in its fullness. Feel the lightness of no longer having to carry the distorted expectations of those who were never able to see your true greatness and depth of soul. The peace you feel today is the result of an internal battle won with honor, elegance, and an incessant search for truth and healing. Continue walking towards your light, knowing that each step is a declaration of independence and a hymn to the life you chose for yourself. The awakening of your consciousness is a gift you gave to the world, and your transformation is proof that love always conquers fear. Connecting with the archetype of the wild and resilient woman allows you to recover the protective instinct that was stifled during the draining relationship. In Jung's view, we all possess an inner compass that guides us towards health and truth. We simply need to silence the wounded ego to hear it clearly. You now realize that the warning signs were always there, but your generosity and hope tried to give chances to those who were unwilling to evolve or respect your space. Given everything you've learned and overcome so far, I'd like to know, what was the exact moment when you felt your inner strength was greater than any external manipulation? Share your experience in the comments, as your story may be the missing key to unlocking the mental cell of another woman who is still suffering in silence. Manipulative behavior functions like a labyrinth of mirrors where reality is distorted, leaving you feeling lost and dependent on the control of whoever is directing you. Breaking these mirrors is an act of courage that requires you to confront your own image without the negative filters imposed on you for so long. Upon regaining clarity, you discover that the labyrinth never had real walls. They were merely mental constructs maintained by fear and a lack of information about the toxic pattern. The maturity that comes with this discovery is liberating because you understand that the exit was always available, awaiting only your awakening and your firm decision to leave. You are no longer a prisoner of someone else's narrative. You are now the sovereign author of every paragraph of your new and brilliant destiny. Rebuilding self-respect is a meticulous work of emotional reforestation, where each positive thought about yourself is a new seed of healing planted in the soil of your soul. The emotionally immature person tried to make their terrain barren, but they forgot that the water of life and consciousness runs deep within you and cannot be stopped. In time, the flowers of joy and spontaneity will bloom again, and the scent of freedom will be the constant fragrance of your peaceful days and nights. This process of rebirth is proof that nothing can destroy an essence that has decided to encounter its own truth and its greater purpose. You are blossoming in ways you couldn't even imagine before, and this beauty is the fruit of your resilience and your commitment to the light. It is essential to remain vigilant about old thought patterns that try to bring you back to the role of someone who suffered from a toxic and limiting experience. You are no longer that person. You are the woman who went through the fire and emerged with a wisdom that only confronting the shadow can provide. The pattern of control over others has now become just a footnote in a book that now focuses on chapters of expansion, self-love, and extraordinary achievements. Honor your progress and do not allow anyone, absolutely no one, to try to diminish the magnitude of the victory you have achieved over chaos and emotional manipulation. Your silent strength is now an impenetrable shield that ensures your peace is preserved above any circumstance or attempt at external invasion. Awakening to a life of clarity and boundaries is the greatest gift you could give yourself after going through a period of so much confusion and emotional suffering. When you look in the mirror today, see not only the face of someone who has overcome challenges, but the eyes of someone who finally sees their own soul with love and deep acceptance. The journey of healing is continuous, but the heavy burden is behind you, replaced by a light backpack containing only what is essential for your happiness. Proceed with faith in your intuition and your self-worth, for the path ahead is illuminated by the certainty that you are the absolute owner of your own light. The cycle has been completed, and now you walk freely towards a future where respect is the foundation of all your relationships. Individuation, according to Jung, is the process of becoming a unique and whole being, reclaiming all the parts of oneself that have been lost or denied throughout life. In a relationship marked by a lack of empathy, it is common for a strong woman to suppress her own desires in an attempt to maintain harmony in an inherently toxic environment. Recovering these fragments of her identity is like gathering the pieces of a treasure scattered by the winds of emotional manipulation and external control. Now you have the opportunity to reassemble your being with a much more refined awareness, choosing only what resonates with your deepest and most authentic truth. This is the moment to rediscover your talents, your passions, and that joy of living that seemed to have been extinguished by the exhausting experience you faced. The impact of an emotionally immature person often generates a state of emotional freeze, where the woman stops dreaming and only survives the daily attacks on her self-esteem. Thawing this state is a delicate process that requires patience, self-compassion, and an unwavering commitment to her own healing and future well-being. As the warmth of self-love begins to melt away the layers of fear and doubt, you feel life flowing again through your veins and thoughts. Transformation is not something that happens to you. It is something you actively generate through every choice that prioritizes your peace and mental integrity. You are awakening from a long winter and discovering that spring has always been kept within your heart, waiting for the right time to manifest. Setting boundaries is not an act of hostility, but a gesture of profound self-respect and a clear definition of where you end and where the other person begins in the relationship. Strong women often struggle with this concept because they have been taught that being good means being limitless in their giving and tolerance for others' mistakes. However, a manipulative person's pattern of control only thrives where there are no firm and conscious barriers protecting the sacred territory of the feminine soul. By saying no to what hurts you, you are saying a resounding yes to your health, your future, and your dignity as a complete human being. Maturity brings the wisdom that your energy is a finite and precious resource, which should only be invested in connections that offer reciprocity and mutual respect. Clarity about the past allows you to identify emotional traps before they are even set, granting you a freedom that stems from attentive and conscious observation. You no longer look at people with paralyzing distrust, but with a keen discernment that separates the wheat from the chaff with natural and instinctive ease. The toxic experience, however painful, refined your senses and made your intuition an extremely precise navigation tool for the new cycles that are beginning. You have learned that peace is non-negotiable and that no relationship, however attractive it may seem, is worth sacrificing your serenity or your mental and spiritual clarity. Your silent strength is now accompanied by an inner voice that is firm, loving, and absolutely faithful to its own principles and values. As you walk this path of reconstruction, you realize that true healing involves forgiveness, not necessarily of the other person, but of the situation and the time you believe you have lost. Time dedicated to learning is never wasted, for it is the fuel that powers your new version, much more resilient, wise, and prepared for life's great achievements. Rebirth is complete when you can look at your history and see in it not a tragedy, but an epic of overcoming and a profound and true spiritual awakening. Move towards your purpose with a light heart, knowing that the chains of manipulation have been broken and that you are the sole commander of your destiny and your happiness. The horizon is clear, and the sun of consciousness shines brightly on your path, illuminating each step of your journey of light. The integration of the shadow is one of the pillars of Jungian psychology, and for a woman who has overcome a pattern of control, this means recognizing the parts of herself that have been wounded. Accepting that we have been manipulated is not a sign of weakness, but of a profound humanity that tried to find good in a place where it unfortunately did not reside at the time. By embracing this pain without judgment, you remove the power that the toxic experience still exerted over your subconscious and your current life choices. Given everything we've discussed about the individuation and healing process, I ask you, how do you define your freedom today compared to what you believed freedom to be in the past? Your answer can help many women understand the difference between apparent peace and the true liberation of the spirit and conscious mind. Rebuilding self-confidence is the foundation upon which all your new life projects will be built with solidity and renewed clarity of purpose. An emotionally immature person spends a lot of energy trying to convince their partner that they are incapable of making correct decisions or living independently and fully. Proving to yourself that this was a lie is a daily exercise in autonomy, where each small personal achievement acts as a brick in your new fortress of self-respect. You discover that your competence and intelligence were never absent. They were merely under the effect of an emotional fog created to keep you in a state of submission. Now, with a clear mind, you can fly to the heights you desire, without fear of falling or being pulled down again. The transformation you are experiencing is a process of inner alchemy, where the lead of manipulation and sadness is transformed into the gold of wisdom and silent strength. This rebirth doesn't happen overnight, but is the result of a loving persistence in choosing your own company and well-being above all else. You have learned that healing is not a return to what you were before, but an evolution into someone the past could never have imagined you would become. The closing of this cycle guarantees that the seeds of the controlling pattern will no longer find fertile ground in your emotional garden, which is now protected by clear boundaries. Feel gratitude for having had the courage to face the storm and for emerging from it with a light that now shines with a much more stable intensity. Emotional maturity allows you to observe the world with eyes that seek essence and truth, ignoring the facades and empty promises that might have deceived you before. You have become an expert at detecting a lack of empathy and manipulation before they can even get close to your closest circle of friends and loved ones. This protection doesn't come from fear, but from a keen awareness that knows your time and love are precious jewels to be shared only with those who value them. The final phase of your reconstruction is marked by serene joy, a satisfaction in being who you are, with all your stories and all your new and brilliant possibilities. You are proof that a strong woman can be wounded, but that her capacity to regenerate and shine is absolutely infinite and powerful. The journey toward complete healing is a succession of awakenings that reveal the beauty of life in colors you may never have noticed during years of a draining relationship. Each deep breath, each peaceful night's sleep, and each spontaneous laugh are celebrations of your triumph over the darkness of emotional manipulation suffered previously. The future is no longer a place of frightening uncertainties, but a stage where you will play your leading role with mastery, dignity, and unwavering self-love. Continue honoring your process, respecting your own pace, and keeping the flame of hope always burning in the center of your courageous heart, renewed by awareness. You have won the battle against the toxic pattern and now reap the rewards of a life based on truth, respect, and the purest and most authentic freedom. The hero's journey, or the heroine's journey, described by Joseph Campbell and analyzed by Jung, perfectly reflects the trajectory of a woman who decides to abandon a toxic experience in search of herself. You cross the desert of solitude accompanied and face the monsters of emotional manipulation with the only weapon that truly matters, your relentless pursuit of inner truth. The return from this journey doesn't bring you back to the same place, but places you on a higher level of consciousness and perception about human nature and its patterns of control. You now possess the elixir of healing, which is the profound knowledge of your own worth and the ability to discern between real love and disguised dependence. This maturity is what allows you to now build a reality where your voice is heard and your boundaries are sacred and respected. The toxic pattern of a control-based relationship attempts to create amnesia about who you were before that constant, often invisible, emotional pressure. Remembering your original strength is an act of historical rescue of your own soul, bringing back the courage and determination that have always inhabited your deepest being. As the layers of manipulation are peeled away, your true essence re-emerges with a clarity that is both gentle and immensely powerful in the face of life's challenges. You realize that the emotionally immature person never managed to extinguish your light, only placed a veil over it, and now that you have removed the veil, the brilliance is even more intense. Transformation is a process of revealing the beauty that has always been there, just waiting for the right moment to be recognized and celebrated by you again. Rebuilding your social and emotional life after a draining relationship requires refined criteria, where the quality of connections should be prioritized over quantity or momentary convenience. You learned the hard way that a lack of empathy can hide behind kind smiles and sweet words, but that truth always manifests itself through actions and respect for boundaries. Having the clarity to choose who walks beside you is one of the greatest demonstrations of self-love that a conscious woman can practice in her renewed daily life. Self-respect is your new standard of measure for any interaction, ensuring that you never again accept less than full reciprocity and genuine consideration for your being. Your silent strength now attracts people who vibrate at the same frequency of peace and integrity that you have achieved with so much effort and dedication. The rebirth you are experiencing is accompanied by a sense of sovereignty over your own mind, where the intrusive thoughts of old manipulation give way to new, inspiring plans and dreams. You are the architect of a new emotional structure that no longer has the cracks through which the pattern of control used to silently enter and settle. Each established boundary reinforces this structure, ensuring that your inner peace is an impregnable fortress against any attempt at invasion or diminishment of your value. The mental clarity you possess today is the result of a deep cleansing of the soul, where what was toxic has been discarded and what is nourishing has been properly cultivated and protected. You have discovered that your happiness is a plant that needs daily care, but whose fruits are the sweetness of freedom and the security of self-knowledge. The final phase of your healing is an invitation for you to use your story as a bridge to help other women find their way out of their own emotional caves. By transforming your pain into purpose, you masterfully close the cycle of the toxic experience, giving a higher meaning to everything you had to face and overcome with such bravery. The closing of this cycle is now a celebration of life, an affirmation that the light of consciousness is capable of dispelling any shadow of manipulation or disrespect for human dignity. Move forward with the certainty that you are a complete, powerful woman, absolutely prepared to live the best that the universe has to offer to those who choose truth. The awakening was definitive, and your new life is a vast and fertile field, ready for the most abundant and happy harvests you have ever imagined. Individuation reaches its peak when we realize that our totality includes both our strengths and the scars left by the battles we fight against lack of empathy and control. Carl Jung believed that the meaning of life is to become who we truly are, stripped of the masks that society or toxic relationships have forced us to wear for so long. You now walk without masks, with your face turned towards the sun of consciousness and your heart open to the experiences that truly nourish your soul and spirit. Before we take the final steps on this healing journey, I invite you to subscribe to the channel to continue receiving this emotional nourishment that strengthens your daily walk towards full autonomy. Your journey inspires us all, and being connected to this circle of transformation ensures that the flame of your awakening remains ever alive and vibrant. Emotional manipulation attempts to convince a woman that she is an incomplete fragment who needs the validation of an emotionally immature person to have any value or meaning in life. Awakening to her own completeness is the greatest defeat that this toxic pattern can suffer, because a woman who feels whole is no longer an easy target for control or guilt games. You have discovered that the source of love, security, and approval lies within you, and that the external world merely reflects the state of your own inner harmony and self-respect. This discovery brings a peace that doesn't depend on circumstances, but on the unwavering certainty that you are your own foundation and your most reliable and loving safe haven. The transformation is the passage from dependence to healthy interdependence, where you choose who you want to be with from a place of abundance, not lack. The maturity that comes after a grueling experience gives you an emotional elegance that manifests in how you handle difficulties and people who still try to test your limits. You no longer need to shout to be heard, nor fight to be respected. Your simple presence and the firmness of your posture already communicate that you are no longer an open territory for invasions. Clarity about who you are and what you accept in your life acts as a natural defense system that repels what is toxic and attracts what is light and truth. You have learned that silent strength is much more effective than reactive confrontation, and that peace of mind is the greatest luxury a conscious and free woman can enjoy in her routine. Your life is now an example of how resilience can transform a painful ending into a glorious opening of a path full of new promises. Rebirth is the moment when you look at your past and can smile, not because the pain has been forgotten, but because it has been fully integrated and transmuted into personal power and life wisdom. The marks of emotional pressure have become the lines of a map pointing to your freedom, a guide you now master with expertise and deep gratitude for every lesson learned. You are proof that a toxic experience can be the catalyst for a quantum leap in human consciousness and for the discovery of a capacity to love that is both protective and expansive. The clarity that dwells in your eyes today is the light of one who has traversed the dark night of the soul and found the dawn of truth and emotional justice within themselves. Proceed with the certainty that the universe celebrates your victory over manipulation, and that your self-worth is the brightest jewel of your existence. At the end of this stage of your reconstruction, feel the warm embrace of your own conscience, which congratulates you for never giving up on your own healing and your most authentic happiness. The future is an invitation for you to explore all your potential, without the shackles of others' control and without the fear of shining with all the intensity that your soul demands and deserves. The turning point of the cycle has been completed with honor, and you now enter a phase of harvest where peace, respect, and true love will be the constant fruits of your new and wonderful reality. Continue being this strong, conscious, and vibrant woman, because the world needs your light and your story of overcoming to become a more empathetic and just place. You are free, you are whole, and you are love manifested in its most resilient and divine form, ready for all the new beginnings that life offers you. The fullness of a woman who has recovered from a pattern of control is like the sea after a storm, deep, serene, and endowed with a strength that no one dares to challenge without due respect. In Jungian psychology, we reach the point where the ego aligns with the self, creating a life that is the direct expression of our most intimate and sacred truth before the world. You are not only healed, you are expanded, occupying your space with a dignity that emanates from every conscious decision you make in favor of your peace and mental health. Emotional manipulation is now just a distant echo that no longer finds resonance within the solid walls of your self-respect and your clarity about immature human nature. This is your state of true freedom, an achievement forged in the fire of experience and tempered with the patience and love you have dedicated to yourself. The complete reconstruction of your identity allows you to see the exhausting relationship of the past as a harsh master who, although not chosen willingly, was faced with extraordinary courage. By removing all the labels of victim and replacing them with protagonist of your own healing, you alter the chemistry of your story and the destiny of future generations of women. The maturity you exhibit today is a beacon illuminating not only your path, but also that of all those who have the privilege of living alongside your new and radiant version of life. The transformation is complete when pain no longer causes withdrawal, but rather a compassionate openness to life, protected by a wisdom that knows exactly where to place its limits. You have learned that being strong is not about not falling, but about having the alchemical capacity to transform the fall into a majestic flight towards the light of consciousness. The closing of this cycle that we celebrate now is the guarantee that you will never again feel lost in other people's labyrinths or in the promises of those who lack empathy to offer. You are your own guide, your own master, and the absolute guardian of the flame that warms your heart and illuminates your highest and most productive thoughts from this day forward. The silent strength you carry is the legacy of someone who survived an invasion of boundaries and emerged from it with a sense of justice and self-love that is simply non-negotiable. Feel the lightness of walking through the world without the weight of the distorted expectations of an emotionally immature person, feeling the pleasure of being exactly who you are without excuses or disguises. Clarity is your new home, and peace is the atmosphere you breathe with immense gratitude for each day of life and regained consciousness. The final stage of your awakening is the recognition that your divine essence has always been untouched. even when you felt most fragile and shaken by life's circumstances and difficult relationships. The toxic pattern may have tried to stifle your voice, but it only made you more attuned to the frequency of truth and emotional justice that now governs your days and your choices. Rebirth is a hymn to feminine resilience, proof that the light of the soul is invincible when we decide to honor our history and our commitment to continuous and loving evolution. Look to the horizon with the smile of someone who knows that the worst is over and that the best is a daily construction made with the hands of freedom and profound self-respect. You are the heroine of your own life, and the applause you hear now comes from the center of your own being, which proudly celebrates your victory. Upon completing this path of healing and reconstruction, remember that your journey is an eternal process of refinement, where each new day is an opportunity to shine with an even clearer awareness. The future that unfolds before you is vast, generous, and full of encounters that will honor the extraordinary woman you have become after traversing the valley of shadow and manipulation. Keep your boundaries firm, your heart open to what is true, and your mind always focused on the clarity you have achieved with such integrity and personal effort. The peace you now inhabit is the firm ground where all your new dreams will bear sweet and abundant fruit, nourishing you and all who cross your path of light. Proceed in peace, proceed with strength, and above all, continue being the light you discovered you always were and will never cease to be.